Welcome back to A Powerless Mage Presents. This is the place where we try to go beyond just talking about self-improvement.
We're really trying to get into the mechanics of it, to hand you the manual for change.
Exactly. And if you've been feeling that kind of persistent, draining buzz of dissatisfaction, that feeling that your life isn't quite lining up with how you think it should be.
Whether it's conflict at work or tension at home.
Or even just that critical voice in your own head. If you're here, it's because you are actively looking for a real solution.
And we often look for external fixes, right? A new job, moving to a new city.
Yeah, anything to change the scenery.
Yeah.
But so often, the real source of that conflict, that roadblock, is a mechanism you use constantly.
Unconsciously.
Hundreds of times a day.
Today we are taking a very deep dive into that fundamental mental process, the act of judgment.
And this isn't just some academic exercise. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, I think we need to be really clear about our mission here.
The source material we've been working with, it's incredibly practical. Its one and only goal is to change your relationship with how you see the world.
Not just to give you information.
No, not at all. The goal is simple. A better quality of life, more peace, more clarity, just by understanding how you judge.
We're going to make this really, really digestible. First, we're going to break down the 3 essential parts of every single judgment you make.
From choosing your coffee to making a life-changing decision.
Then, we'll define the 3 distinct types of judgments we all have: fact, value, and prescription.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah. Because finally, we're going to explore the huge consequences of mixing those types up. Because that confusion, well, that's the engine of so much disappointment and conflict in our lives today.
Especially online.
Especially online. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start right at the beginning with the fundamental anatomy of how we all judge.
So, as you go through your day, you're not just a passive observer. You are constantly processing everything around you.
Trying to make sense of it all.
Exactly. You're trying to give all that raw data some kind of meaning. And that whole process, that conversion from observation to meaning, operates through this universal mechanism of judgment.
And it always follows 3 steps.
Always. In sequence, without fail. And if you can learn to slow down and see these steps, you can basically audit your own mind.
Okay, so what's step 1?
The first part is something the source calls segregation.
Segregation. Okay, that sounds a little clinical.
It does, but all it really means is to separate things out. Isolation.
Got it.
It's the absolute first step for any meaningful judgment. You have to isolate the specific object or idea or action you're about to judge. You treat it as its own distinct unit, separate from everything else.
You have to define what you're actually looking at before you can decide how you feel about it.
Precisely. Before you can stick a label on something, like good or bad, you have to draw a circle around it.
So if I have a really terrible meeting at work, segregation means I don't go home thinking my whole career is a disaster.
Yes, you don't condemn the whole company or your skills or your entire future.
I just isolate that 1 hour.
You isolate the hour, and then right after that, you have to establish the criterion you're judging it by.
The standard of measurement.
The standard. You wouldn't judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, right? You have to define your terms.
Yeah.
If you're judging your relationship, what are the criteria? Is it emotional support? Shared goals?
You have to know what you're measuring against. This is already so practical.
It is.
I mean, we get so overwhelmed because we try to judge this giant, messy thing called my life all at once.
And this tells you, no, you don't have to. You don't have to throw the whole thing out just because one part isn't working.
So if a big project at work fails, I can use segregation to ask, okay, wait, did the plan fail? Or was it the execution? Or did we just not have the right budget?
Exactly. You're isolating the variables. Only then can you actually fix the right problem.
Let's use that movie example from the source because it's so clear.
It's a perfect illustration. Most people walk out of a theater and just say, that was a terrible movie.
Right, a blanket statement.
They're judging the whole thing as one unit under one vague criterion. It was entertained. But if you apply segregation properly, you can break it down.
Okay, so the plot, that's one unit, the acting is another, the music.
Cinematography, the direction, each one is a separate unit. And you can judge each one separately. You might say, the plot was a mess, but the acting was absolutely brilliant.
And the music was incredible.
Yes. So you can see the nuance. You can acknowledge the parts that work without letting them be dragged down by the parts that didn't.
This applies to everything. If you feel like your job is making you miserable, you have to segregate. Is it the actual work you do?
Or is it your boss?
Or the commute? Or the company culture?
If you don't isolate the real source of the problem, you can't solve it. When people feel that kind of chronic, low-grade dissatisfaction with their lives,
Yeah.
it's almost always a failure at this first step. They're judging their whole life as one big failing grade instead of finding the specific areas that actually need a little attention.
Okay, that's segregation. Isolate the unit. Define the criteria. Super clear. What's part 2?
Part 2 is discrimination.
This is the labeling part.
This is the labeling part. This is the act of actually applying the verdict. You stamp the unit you just isolated with its meaning, good or bad, true or false, success or failure.
So if I isolated the music from that movie, discrimination is when I decide, okay, that was excellent.
Precisely. But here's the warning sign. This is where the conflict starts to creep in, because that label, excellent, isn't some property of the music itself.
Right. It's my opinion.
It's a judgment that depends entirely on the person making it. On you. On the standards you're using.
So the label isn't reality. The label is my perception of reality.
Exactly. Think about the source's example of the 2 film critics. They watch the exact same movie. They both segregate the storytelling.
But one calls it a masterpiece, and the other calls it a boring failure.
Their labels, their discrimination, are polar opposites. Why? Because the labels are filtered through their personal tastes, their past experiences, maybe even what they had for lunch.
So the label says as much about the critic as it does about the movie.
It's a mirror. When you label your colleague's comment as aggressive, that label reflects your definition of aggression, your past experiences with it, just as much, if not more, than their actual intent.
Wow. Okay. And that's so crucial because the label you choose, it has an emotional weight to it.
A huge one. And that emotional weight leads directly to the final step, the action you take. If you mislabel here, your actions will be out of sync with what actually happened.
Just knowing that my label is subjective, that alone feels like it could prevent 1,000 arguments. When someone disagrees with me, they're not attacking reality, they're just
sharing their different subjective reality.
Okay, so we've got segregation and discrimination, isolation and labeling. What's the final, most impactful step?
Part 3 is the sentence.
Okay. This is where the rubber meets the road. The sentence is the action you take. It's the resolutions you make, the behaviors you choose in direct response to the label you just applied.
This is where judgment stops being a thought in my head and starts actually changing my life, my relationships, my bank account.
It's the actionable step. It connects your internal judgment to your external behavior. Let's trace it with that coworker example. It's a good one.
Okay.
So, there's a fight in a meeting. Step 1, segregation. You isolate their specific comment, a sharp, dismissive remark.
Got it.
Step 2, discrimination. You apply the label. Now, you have a choice. You could label it a sign of deep personal disrespect. That's a very heavy negative label.
Right.
Or you could label it a sign that they're under a ton of stress and just handled it poorly. A more contextual, less personal label.
And the sentence, the action I take, is going to be completely different depending on which label I chose.
Radically different.
Yeah.
If you chose deep personal disrespect, what's the sentence? I'm probably going to avoid them. Maybe I stopped collaborating. Maybe I even complained to my boss. It changes everything.
It poisons the well. But if the label is under intense stress,
Then the sentence might be to just let it go. Or maybe even ask them if they're okay later. It completely changes the outcome.
the quality of your entire work environment for the next year could hinge on the label you chose in that one moment.
That's powerful. The sentence is about how we spend our energy. If I look at my finances and my label, my discrimination is, this is hopeless.
What's the sentence?
The sentence is, I give up. I stop checking my account. I spend recklessly because what's the point? It's a self-destructive action.
But if the label is, this is a challenge that needs a plan.
The sentence is, I download a budgeting app. I call my bank. I take control. A productive action.
And here's the kicker. The sentence reinforces the discrimination. Inaction proves to you that the situation is hopeless. It creates a feedback loop.
A self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. So if you find yourself taking actions that hurt you, the key isn't to just try and force yourself to act differently.
No, you have to go back.
You have to pause and audit the label you applied in the discrimination stage. The input determines the output.
So slow it all down.
Yep.
Isolate the piece, label it consciously, and then choose your action.
That's the core of self-awareness right there.
Okay. Before we move on to the different types of judgment, let's just pause on that. Here's a question for you to think about. How often do you consciously track the 3 steps? Isolating the object, labeling it, and deciding on the resulting action. when you make a major daily decision, like sending a critical email or setting a new boundary.
Welcome back to A Powerless Mage Presents.
So we've just laid out the how of judgment, that three-step cycle of segregation, discrimination, and sentence.
And now we need to talk about the what. What kind of judgment are you actually making?
This is where it gets really, really critical for your quality of life.
It is, because, as the source material makes so clear, mixing up these types is the root cause of so much unnecessary pain and conflict in the world. We have to know what foundation our judgment is built on.
Let's start with the one that keeps us grounded in reality, type 1.
Type 1. Judgment of fact. This type of judgment is based entirely in logic and measurable reality.
So no feelings allowed here.
None. It's all about concrete data, observable results, objective facts. A judgment of fact exists completely separate from your personal preferences or emotions. It is what it is.
It's pure utility. Math, science, physics. If this table is 3 feet long, it's 3 feet long. My wish for it to be 4 feet long doesn't change that fact.
And that's why it's so useful for navigating the world effectively. Let's use the painter scenario from the source. It's a perfect example.
Okay.
You have a critical need. A room needs to be painted, and it must be done in 3 days. That's your factual requirement.
Right.
You call a painter. Maybe he's the best in the city. Maybe he's your best friend. He looks at the job and says, factually, this will take me 5 days.
The judgment of fact here is instant.
And it's decisive. It doesn't matter how great a painter he is. That's a different judgment. It doesn't matter how much you like him personally.
That's a different judgment too.
Exactly. The verifiable fact, 5 days, does not match the verifiable need, 3 days.
No.
So the factual judgment is simple. He is not the right person for this job.
And the sentence is you have to find someone else. No drama, no hard feelings.
It's clean. It's efficient. There's no moral weight to it. You're not saying he's a bad painter. You're just stating that the facts don't align. We need fact judgments to make rational decisions.
But, a life lived only on facts would be pretty gray.
It would be logical, but it would lack joy, meaning connection. We're not robots. We need to have a personal relationship with the world. And that brings us to type 2.
Ah, yes. The source of pretty much every argument about art, food, and music ever.
The judgment of value.
And the foundation for this one is the complete opposite of fact.
Completely. A judgment of value is grounded in your affective preferences. It's about how you feel about something, based on your personal history, your emotions, your unique perceptions.
It's what you like and what you don't like.
And it requires zero objective data. Your feeling is the data.
So the source is a simple example. The color red. I can say red is my favorite color.
And if I ask why, you might say, I don't know, it just makes me feel good.
And that's a perfectly valid reason for a value judgment. I don't need to prove it. It makes me feel good is the beginning and the end of the argument.
Exactly. And if I say, well, red makes me feel anxious, my value judgment is just as valid as yours.
The object, the color is neutral. The judgment is happening inside of it.
Let's apply that to something more complex, like art. The comedian example.
Right.
Let's say there's a comedian everyone says is a genius, but you watch his special and you just don't laugh. His jokes don't land for you.
My value judgment is simple. He's not funny.
And that verdict is 100% true for you. It's a reflection of your personal sense of humor, your life experiences. It is not, however, a factual statement about the objective quality of his joke writing or his comedic timing.
So my judgment that he's not funny can exist at the same time as the fact that he sells out stadiums.
They don't contradict each other. We need value judgments. They're how we choose our friends, decorate our homes, pick our hobbies. They give life its color and texture.
But they are not universal truth.
Emphatically not. They belong to you and you alone. The second you try to force your value judgment on someone else, the second you say that comedian is objectively unfunny, you're just picking a fight.
Because you're basically telling them their internal reality is wrong.
Yes.
Okay, so fact is what's out there. Value is what's in here. What's the third type?
The third type is interesting because it's a kind of shortcut. It's the judgment of prescription.
Prescription, like from a doctor.
Exactly. This judgment bypasses your own analysis. You don't need to gather the facts yourself, and you don't need to check in with your own feelings. You base your judgment entirely on a recommendation from an external source you trust.
So I'm basically outsourcing my judgment to someone else.
You're prescribing authority to them. The unseen movie scenario is the classic example. A friend asks if the new blockbuster is any good.
But I haven't seen it, so I have no personal value judgment. And I haven't researched its box office numbers, so I have no real facts.
But you've read 3 reviews from critics you always agree with, and they all loved it. And your two friends with the best taste in movies said it was amazing.
So I tell my friend, yeah, it's great, you should definitely see it.
That statement, "it's great," is a pure judgment of prescription. Your confidence is based entirely on the trust you have in those external sources.
We do this all the time.
We have to. We can't be experts on everything. When you choose a surgeon based on a hospital's reputation or invest your money with a financial advisor.
You're making a judgment of prescription. You're trusting your expertise.
And of course, if that trusted source lets you down enough times, if the critics keep recommending movies you end up hating, the prescription fails. Your trust breaks down.
And you're forced back to relying on your own facts or your own values again.
So that's the toolkit. Fact, what is, value, what I feel, prescription, what they say. And the real trouble, the thing that causes so much grief, is when we get them all mixed up.
And that's what we're going to get into next. But at first, let's take a moment. Think about the last argument you had about taste, whether it was music, art, or a simple recipe. When you were defending your point, were you arguing based on a verifiable fact, an internal value, or a confident prescription? Welcome back. This is the final and I think most critical part of our deep dive. This is where we talk about the real-world consequences, how this stuff directly impacts your happiness and your peace of mind.
Right. Because the source material describes this epic internal battle that's constantly raging inside of us, a struggle between our fact judgments and our value judgments.
And it sounds like we need both, but one of them is way more dangerous.
In a way, yes. Facts ground us. They give us a stable reality to work with. Values give us our emotional connection to that reality. They give us meaning.
Right.
But our value judgments, when we're not conscious of them, can become these rigid, inflexible rules about how the world should be.
Expectations.
Exactly. And when our personal feelings about how things should be get all tangled up with social conditioning and these idealized pictures of who we're supposed to be, well, life gets really complicated and really conflicted.
So let's break down the consequences. Let's start with that big one, the constant feeling of disappointment.
This is the core problem for so many people, and the film's sequel anecdote from the source just nails it.
That one really hit home for me.
It's a universal mechanism. So you love the first film. That's a powerful, positive value judgment. It's a feeling you had in the past.
And it was great.
So great that you project that past feeling onto a future event, the sequel. You create this perfect idea in your head of what the second movie must be like to give you that same great feeling again.
That idea becomes a rigid expectation.
It's a template. And when the sequel finally comes out, reality is never the same as your imagined ideal. It's different. It fails to match the template, and you're flooded with disappointment.
And here's the crazy part the source points out. The disappointment actually stops you from seeing the movie that's right in front of you.
You can't engage with it on its own terms. You're too busy comparing it to the ghost of the first movie you've built up in your head. Your fixed value judgment becomes a wall between you and present reality.
And the sentence you apply is anger and frustration. You blame the director, the writers.
When really you're just mad that reality didn't conform to your private wish.
And this isn't just about movies. This is our daily life.
All day, every day. We do this with our jobs. We have a value judgment about what a dream job should feel like. And when the reality of the job involves boring paperwork and difficult colleagues,
We feel cheated, disappointed.
we do it in relationships. We hold up this idealized template of the perfect partner. And when our actual human partner is tired or messy or just imperfect, we feel resentment.
We're not fighting with them. We're fighting with our own template.
Your expectations are just old value judgments that you're trying to force onto an unpredictable future. And it's a battle you will always lose.
And it gets even worse when we turn that weapon on ourselves.
This is where it gets really painful, the self-shame part.
So we absorb all this social conditioning, these ideas about who we should be.
I should be successful. I should be fit. I should always be happy and productive. It's this giant, impossible value judgment we create for ourselves.
And then when real life happens,
Yeah.
when we have a setback at work or miss a workout,
We execute the harshest possible discrimination. We slap a label on ourselves. I'm a failure. I'm lazy. I'm not good enough.
and that's a pure value judgment. It's not a fact. It's just a reflection of our preference for being perfect.
Think about missing a deadline. A value judgment would be, I am worthless. I can't do anything right.
And the sentence that follows from that label is probably just giving up, procrastinating more.
It creates a shame spiral. But what would a factual judgment be?
A factual judgment would be, I missed the deadline. The facts are, I underestimated the time needed for task A, and I failed to ask for help on task B.
And what's the sentence that follows from that label?
Action. Replan the calendar. Communicate the delay. Learn from the mistake.
Exactly. The factual judgment preserves your self-worth and leads to improvement. The value judgment destroys it and leads to paralysis. So much of the mental anguish people feel is just this: the gap between their messy real life and the idealized value judgment they think they're supposed to live up to.
We confuse our preferences for ourselves with the facts of ourselves.
And that confusion becomes toxic when we start exporting it to other people. This is what the source calls the most problematic error of all.
Trying to pass off your subjective opinion, your value judgment, as an objective truth, a fact.
It's a form of subconscious intellectual fraud. We wrap our personal feelings in the language of fact because we want our opinions to have more weight.
We want to be right.
We want to be right. So someone says, that politician is objectively terrible.
But when you ask for the facts, what do you get?
You get value judgments. I don't like his tone of voice. I disagree with his policies. Those are perfectly valid value judgments, but they are not objective facts proving incompetence.
We see it in reviews all the time. This phone is terrible because the new design is ugly.
The fact is, the design changed. Ugly is your value judgment, but it's presented as a factual flaw in the product.
And people love to use that word objectively.
Oh, it's the biggest tell. This game is objectively boring. No, it's not. It is subjectively boring to you. But saying objectively makes it sound like you're delivering a verdict from on high.
And this error has just exploded because of social media.
It has metastasized. The whole ecosystem runs on it. It's never been easier to project an image of expertise without any actual facts to back it up.
And the platforms reward the most extreme value judgments.
Of course. Outrage gets clicks. Moral superiority gets shares. A nuanced factual take, it gets ignored. So people are incentivized to confuse, I don't like this, with this is factually evil.
And it just creates this deafening roar of collective noise and confusion.
It really does. You see it in a one-star restaurant review. One fact: I had to wait 20 minutes for a table. One emotional reaction: I am furious. And the resulting value judgment presented as fact. This entire business is a disgrace and should be shut down.
The subjective feeling is blown up into a universal truth.
And underneath it all is often this deep need to feel authoritative, to feel important. By stating my preference as a fact, I'm not just sharing a feeling, I'm trying to establish myself as the ultimate judge.
And that's the noise that is wearing us all down every single day.
The path to getting some peace back, both for yourself and in your interactions, is just rigorous honesty. When you feel that anger, that disappointment, that conflict, just stop and ask yourself, is what I'm saying right now a verifiable fact, or is it my personal emotional preference?
Just that question can disarm a fight before it even starts.
It gives you all the power back. You start to realize your disappointment isn't reality failing you. It's just reality not lining up with one of your old value judgments.
Okay, this is the central conflict. Let's take a final moment to reflect on it. Where in your life are your expectations based on old fixed value judgments currently stopping you from fully enjoying the reality that is happening right now? The reality that is complex, imperfect, and messy. And that brings us to the end of this really deep dive into the anatomy of judgment. We've broken down those core mechanics you use every single day: segregation, discrimination, and sentence.
We define the 3 pillars of your thinking: fact, value, and prescription.
And most importantly, we've really tried to show the high cost of blurring those lines. How confusing what is with what you simply feel about what is. Well, it leads directly to disappointment, to conflict, and to that harsh inner critic.
Understanding this anatomy, this whole system, really is the first and most essential step toward reclaiming your own internal peace.
So now, when you feel that friction, that little wave of dissatisfaction, you have the tools. You can be your own auditor.
You can pause and ask, did I isolate the real problem correctly? Is the label I'm about to apply based on facts or just my feelings?
And is the action I'm about to take, the sentence, actually appropriate for this situation? Or is it an overreaction based on a mislabeling?
And this isn't about becoming some cold, emotionless robot. It's the opposite. It's about self-mastery. It's about consciously choosing the right tool for the right job.
Use your fact judgments to build a bridge or plan your finances.
And use your value judgments to choose your friends, to fall in love, to find joy in music and art. Let them give your life meaning.
Just don't let one pretend to be the other.
Especially when you're judging yourself. Practicing that distinction every day, that is the key to unlocking a fundamentally higher quality of life. Don't simply take our word. Put everything you heard here to the test. Make this knowledge truly yours.
Remember, the power is yours.